Mark, so you're talking at Strata about how big crime meets big data, you
Yes.
could call it that. So what are the main ways in which organised crime are collecting large data sets and exploiting them?
Well, they're doing it in a number of different ways. Perhaps the methodology that they use most frequently is computer malware. So they're using viruses, worms, Trojans, things of that nature to actually get access to data to which they're not entitled. And then beyond that, they're also using social networking techniques like phishing emails to get people tricked into providing details that they wouldn't normally otherwise provide.
Okay, so how prevalent is cybercrime related to data taken from social networks, for example?
Well, it's quite a concern, obviously. People are sharing, and one might even suggest oversharing, vast amounts of information. Of course, there aren't just personal social data networks anymore, but there are business-related social networks as well, such as LinkedIn. And on those types of social networks, people are sharing everything from their travel plans to their family stories. So it provides a rich source and resource for criminals to go after if they want to target you. There are a number of sites that have popped up that, like pleaserobme.com, where people are aggregating people's location data and knowing when they're going out on vacation and publishing it such that people can become victims of burglary.
Okay, that's quite scary.
Yes.
So those are the major sources of the data then, this kind of malware or
Yes.
social engineering in a way via social networks?
Yeah, there are 286 million unique pieces of computer malware that have been identified in the wild. Organized crime created those, and they wouldn't put that much effort into it unless they wanted to get at the big data that's available, that's being created by corporations and governments around the world.
Okay, so can you give me an example of a recent major incident that's fitted into this whole trend?
Sure. Probably one of the most recent ones that's been well noted was the Sony attack against the PSP network. They lost almost 100 million records of data, which included their customers' banking information, their private information, their accounts, their passwords, and the like. And in fact, the results of that one particular break-in are still being felt. There was so much stolen criminal data that was put out there that we've actually seen price fluctuations in a supply and demand type scenario where the price of purchasing stolen credit card data actually decreased because it was so
much
voluminous.
was available.
That's correct.
Oh my goodness. So do you have an example or have an idea how much a data breach like that actually costs the company? I mean, beyond the individuals who have lost their credit card data?
There are a lot of different estimates out there, but one that's often most cited is a group called the Ponemon Institute, and they've studied data breaches, and they estimate for every customer record lost, it is at least $200 to the corporation, and that includes not just the cost of remediating their systems, but also their reputation, the advertising, rehabilitation that needs to go on after the fact, the customer churn, the number of customers that leave, plus they have to pay for people to get free credit reports for a year. Credit cards need to be replaced. So if you think Sony had 100 million data records lost at $200 each, that's quite a cost.
It's a major blow to a company.
Absolutely.
And you've also written about how data crime syndicates actually now have specialized technical teams in various areas covering big data. Can you tell me a bit more about that and how it works?
Absolutely. Organized crime is just that, is in fact very organized, particularly in the field of cybercrime. So the work is broken up for a specialized team and is outsourced. As corporations around the world struggle to cooperate with their partners around the world, organized crime has done this quite well. We all have organized crime groups in Eastern Europe cooperating with Chinese triads or Japanese yakuza.
So it's a global thing.
It's very much global, and in fact it's broken down bit by bit. So there are people that write the malware to infect the computers, there are people deploy it, there are people that control and rent the botnets, there are people that receive the stolen goods, there are people that receive and do the money laundering. So it's actually quite a complex process, but they've outsourced it really nicely and effectively, unfortunately.
Sounds very efficient.
It is.
And maybe final question, how can companies and individuals protect their data from being leaked and exploited in this way?
Yes, I would say probably the best thing you can do is have a healthy skepticism about your online activities. There are so many different vulnerabilities out there that have been identified. Just by fixing those holes that are already known to exist, you can block out a high percentage, 90-95% of the attacks. So Microsoft and other companies issue bulletins where they notify customers of critical vulnerabilities, security vulnerabilities. The problem is it's very difficult to maintain those and stay on top of them. But if one did, you could block 90% of those. The other thing I would encourage people to do is think before you share. Not everybody needs to have your travel itinerary around the world or your home address, as an example.
All right, so it's not all bad news.
It's not all bad news. In fact, there's a lot that can be done if you take some common sense steps.
All right, thank you very much, Marc.
The pleasure was mine.